In Gran Turismo 7, a lot has changed since the launch of the game. It's no secret that GT7's launch was not necessarily the golden age of the game. And while in some ways GT7 has gone worse since launch, there's a lot of different things that they've changed to actually make the game better. But the thing I want to touch on today, which cars have been altered and changed since GT7 released back in 2022. Now, if I wanted to be really technical about this, you could say all of the cars have changed because there have been multiple different physics updates throughout the game's life. But today in this video, I'm going to be looking more into cars that have been modified one by one. Cars that Polyphony Digital may be deemed problematic either by being too fast or maybe underperforming their expectations. It's fun to speculate some of the reasons that Polyphony Digital may have made modifications to these cars, what their rationale was at the time, whether or not that rationale made sense within the context of the game. But I guess all we can look at specifically is which cars did indeed change in Gran Turismo 7, and that's what I'm going to be getting into today. So the first car I'm going to touch on is the Chevrolet Corvette Z06, the C6 2009 model. This was the fastest rear-wheel drive road car in Gran Turismo 7, period, around most tracks at least. And while it's always felt a little bit bizarre to drive, this car has indeed suffered from a downforce nerf, which took the maximum allowed downforce from 300 down to 260, but that was not the only change that was made to this C6. I do believe the traction was also heavily nerfed on this car. At one point, this car put down the power better than any rear-wheel drive road car in the game, especially at that power level, and now it is just a shell of its former self and drives a lot more typical for a front-engine rear-wheel drive car in this game. The C6 hasn't been nerfed into the ground. It's still a great car, but it's not quite as good as it once was. The C7 Corvette ZR1, the 2019 model, also had its moment in the sun, but that was between the 1.31 and 1.48 updates, where the C7 ZR1 was an extremely insane high downforce monster that could rival cars like the F8 Tributo, the Lamborghini Aventador, and the Nissan GTR. While the C7 hasn't lost any of its actual downforce in-game, it's obvious that Polyphony Digital has done something to the programming on this car to nerf it and make it slower than those aforementioned vehicles that it used to compete with. This occurred precisely in the 1.49 update, and I felt it immediately upon driving the car and hot lapping it compared to its competitors that it used to be competitive against. The next car is the Huracan LP610-4, another car that I tested in my top 40 setup videos all the way back in early 2023. This car has indeed lost downforce, not really all that much downforce. I believe its maximum allowed front downforce was 200, now it's down to 160, but once again, the handling difference is absolutely massive on this car. It used to absolutely be on rails, now it's one of the weaker modern mid-engine supercars in the game. I'm not saying it's bad, and obviously with the Bugatti engine swap, it's completely broken in terms of its performance points rating, but it doesn't drive nearly as well as it once did. Another car that got hurt significantly was the Mercedes-AMG GT Black Series, which had a maximum allowed downforce of 280, which has now been brought down to 250. Now, I don't think this car was modified in any other way, I just think it got a flat downforce nerf, and that's that. Another car that got a flat downforce nerf was the Mitsubishi Evo 8. Now, this 2004 model of the Evo 8 was actually a car that was released later in GT7's life, and in my top 50 road cars video, which I released actually not really all that long ago, it had 220 pounds of front downforce. However, the very next update, it was down to 200 pounds of front downforce, which definitely hurts the lap time of this car, considering it also has a broken PP exploit, the same one the likes of the Huracan. It's still an unbelievably great sub 775, the sub 800 PP car, so I don't think it really hurt it all that badly. Now to get into the GR3 portion of this video, I'm quickly going to be touching on all of the GR3 cars that have been nerfed during this car modification process throughout GT7's life. To start it off with the most affected member, it is undoubtedly the Skyline Super Silhouette, which is actually the lightest car in Gran Turismo 7 and the car with the best power to weight ratio when maxed out in Gran Turismo 7. Before the 1.31 update, this car had the best high-speed cornering in all of Group 3 besides the Subaru BRZ GT300, and while the car's main weakness was its acceleration lower in the revs due to the immense turbo lag, the car also had a very good top speed on top of the fact it had great handling. It was an excellent Group 3 car in the grand scheme of things. After the 1.49 update, this car was brutally murdered. The top speed was nerfed heavily to be one of the weaker ones in the category, and the handling in the high-speed corners went from being the second best to being probably one of the worst. It still feels pretty nice to drive when you drive it on BOP, and even maxed out to a certain degree. There's no question that this car is way slower than it once was. Too bad for the Skyline silhouette. It was a cool car while it lasted, but now it's garbage. Now getting into the older GT500 cars. The Supra GT500, the NSX GT500, and GTR GT500 all had their top speed nerfed after the 1.49, or maybe it was the 1.51 update. I'm forgetting which one it was exactly, but these cars were unbelievably great in the top end side of things, and Polyphony Digital probably nerfed them in order to make them less of an outlier on those straight line speed tracks, but I don't even know why they bothered, because on BOP they're completely useless regardless. But yeah, those cars lost a lot of top speed. The McLaren F1, while it didn't have any of its downforce values changed or anything like that, at least not the Group 3 version, the handling is undoubtedly a little bit weaker than what I remember earlier in the game, and this can't just be chalked up to a physics update. This car actually handled really well when the game came out, kind of more similar to like the Lamborghini and like the Ferrari, some of those higher tier mid-engine cars, and now it's a shell of its former self in the corners. Still has excellent straight line speed and acceleration, just doesn't corner as well as it once did, which I think maybe makes a little bit of sense considering the era of car that we're dealing with. The Dodge Viper GTSR and Chevrolet Corvette Group 3 on the other hand, two American icons, have both been nerfed heavily in terms of their handling. Once again, their downforce values are the same as they were at launch, but the cars have been messed with and altered with in some way to make their natural handling a lot worse than it was when the game came out. I remember when they were lapping faster than the 911 RSR maxed out, and now they can't even get within a second and a half of that car. Going into the only Group 3 car that was affected positively by the changes, the Ford GT Race Car 2018, while it did lose a little bit of its handling potential after the 1.31 update, it has the best top end in the entire category, and that even includes the Subaru BRZ. Its top speed is unbelievably fast, and given the slippery profile of the body, I think it does make sense. And last but not least, the GR3 Beetle has seen a significant fall off from when this game first came out. While this car has recovered to actually be pretty strong on certain tracks on BOP, the handling of this car was nerfed at some point in GT7's life, because closer to launch, honestly, this car was pretty damn good. Sticking with the race cars but going to a different category, the Group 2 McLaren F1 GTR race car lost 100 pounds of front and rear downforce. For reference, this gives it less downforce than any other car in the class, and the same downforce as the Subaru BRZ GT300 car, which is in Group 3. Now, I've already said this many times in different videos, this car deserves to have its downforce back, especially considering the price, especially considering the CLK, its rival, is kicking its ass now because it lost all of that downforce. And going up one more category to Group 1, all of the Group C cars across the board, the R92CP, the 787B, the XJR9, the Porsche 962, the Sauber Mercedes, have all lost 100 pounds of downforce after the 1.49 update, going from 1600 pounds of rear downforce down to 1500. I do not know exactly why PD made this change, but I do think it was probably due to the PP manipulation that you could do when you put the Group C's rear downforce all the way up. Now, the Group C cars are still unbelievably excellent, but this change did make it so that a lot of them can't run maximum front downforce anymore. You have to turn the front downforce down, otherwise they become way too unstable at high speeds, so this rear downforce change definitely did hamper their effectiveness slightly. A very notable change that Gran Turismo even mentioned in their patch notes was the change to the GTR LM NISMO. The predominantly front-wheel drive Group 1 car is now classified as four-wheel drive in-game. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that works. Potentially maybe they added a KERS system or the hybrid works differently, but this car is now four-wheel drive. Now, if you drive it, if you're asking me, it still feels like an FF car, but it was improved slightly with this change, and this is definitely a notable change to this car and this car's performance. The McLaren F1 Road Car, the 1994 model, which is the third McLaren F1 in this video, has also been modified at some point during the game's life. Why? This McLaren F1 was so bad when the game first came out that I considered it to be the biggest waste of money in my entire garage at the time, and while the car isn't unbelievably strong on today's version of Gran Turismo 7, at 785 pp, it can really fly, especially on straight line speed based tracks, and even run at 800 pp, which would be considered punching above its weight. It's still an excellent car in those lobbies as well. So the McLaren F1 has had a major glow up since this game has come out, and is one of the few highlights of this video. A car that's gone in the opposite direction since it was released is the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. Now, the Demon once again was not a car that was in GT7 at launch, but when it did release, it had 300 pounds of front downforce and absolutely ripped around the corners, and was by far the best handling muscle car in this game. And while it still has all of that downforce that it had at release, something seriously wrong happened to this car's handling, and I don't believe it was just physics changes. The car went from being an order of magnitude better than the Camaro ZL1 to being an order of magnitude worse handling than that car. And I think they did this because they realized that they overtuned it maybe slightly at release. That would be my bet anyways. And the Dodge Demon, not quite as good as it once was. Same story, different car, Ferrari F430. I don't remember how much downforce potential it had when you fully maxed it out, and because I don't have screenshots or data from back then, I'm just going to say that they have changed the way that this car handles, but they could have very well taken away downforce too. I just don't remember. My guess for this car why they nerfed it is because they knew they were going to come out with the 430 Scuderia later in the game's life, and the F430 being as powerful as it was maybe was not ideal for them when the 430 Scud released. The penultimate offering in this video is going to be the Bugatti Veyron 16.4, the street kart model and not the race car model in the Group 4 category. Earlier on in this game's life, the Bugatti Veyron was the 5th fastest road car in the game. Now, do I think it would have held that status throughout this entire time period with all the engine swaps and different cars that have been added? Of course not. But the fact that it had a healthy 190 front downforce and now has been brought down to 100 after the 1.31 update is a little bit of a letdown, considering the only time that the Veyron has been formidable in Gran Turismo in my opinion was that early GT7 period, and while it's not a terrible car for its performance points now, it's definitely a shell of its former self and requires a wacky high rear ride height to get the most out of the cornering. I think the reason they did this because it was outperforming the Chiron in many circumstances, so I kind of understand the change, but wish it kind of didn't happen. And last but not least, the car with the most lore on this list in my opinion is the Lamborghini Aventador LP754 SV. The Aventador SV was unfriggin' believable when this game came out. It was the best road car in the game by 1.2 seconds and boasted 300 front downforce and 500 rear. It now has 250 front downforce and 450 rear, and while that doesn't sound like a massive difference, the Aventador SV went from being by far the best road car in the game to just in and around those GTR R35s and the regular non-SV Aventador's potential, which is still in and among the best non-swapped road cars in the game. But with the 812 Superfast being added much later in the game's life, the 812 being the new fastest unswapped street car in the game, besides the Valkyrie of course, I would have liked to see what the Aventador in its prime could have done against that 812, but I guess we'll never know. Obviously there's going to be more cars that could be added to this list. I don't have data points for every single car early in the game's life throughout all of the updates, so if you guys have any cars in mind that have clearly been modified either in a positive or negative way by Polyphony Digital throughout the game's life, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know which car that I missed. And if you do enjoy videos like this, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps me out and I really do appreciate all the support. But without letting this video drag on too long, I hope you guys all have a fantastic night. Who knows what cars are going to change in the future of Gran Turismo 7, but it's been your boy Dude, and I'm out. Peace.